It is summertime for the Browns, but we don't stop here on the show. No. We dive into each Browns 2024 opponents week by week. And this week, it's the New York Football Giants that are on tap. Let's get right to it on the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara, the sickest Cleveland Browns podcast.
Chubb runs, he's to the 10, 15, he's to the 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. There goes Chubb, he's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown, Shabba-lubba hub.
It's gonna be sick.
Welcome, everybody, to the show. Yes. It is time to keep that NFL conversation going. This is the only time, really, in the NFL season that things are quiet, right? Things die down. So this allows us to do things such as, well, get into some maybe fantasy football prep, dive into the opponents of your favorite team. And for our Cleveland Browns, it's a tough schedule, like it is for the rest of the AFC North on paper. But the way the schedule has been constructed, first chunk of the season, there's a lot of opportunity to get off to that quick start and build that up when things get a little more tricky and you might not be able to pull off consecutive wins. So we'll see how that goes when the time comes. But we're going to talk New York Giants in just a second, our week 3 opponents. But first, folks, make sure you are clicking subscribe, notifications on Browns fans. Leave your comments in the comment section. Also, you might be watching on Twitter, on X, at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81. Make sure you're following us there. On Instagram and on TikTok, at AndyMCSports. I want to know your prediction for this Browns versus Giants game, your Browns record prediction for the season, and what concerns you the most, and what are you most confident in for this Cleveland Browns team in 2024. So let's get to our New York Giants preview of a team that, well, maybe isn't that great, but this is a golden opportunity for the Browns to pounce, and they have added some pieces. So I bring in my guy from 97.3 ESPN in Jersey. It's Josh Hennig. Brother, how are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. How you doing?
Doing good. And on your station, in your area, it's a heavy Philadelphia Eagles fan base, but also a lot of New York Giants fans in coverage. So you are right into that whole NFC North Giants and Eagles heavy. So I thought, well, if I can have an excuse to talk to my buddy Josh on both the Giants and Eagles this offseason, why the hell not, right?
Yeah, and for those who don't know, where our station is located, right outside Atlantic City, you're literally it's Eagles country. Don't get me wrong, but there is a plethora of Giants fans in our region. So it's not like for example, if I was to do a poll of non-Eagles fans, it would be probably Giants number 2. So, and then you have your random Cowboy fan who's like, I saw the Cowboys when I was 10 years old win a Super Bowl. Those idiots. Yeah. But, there's a good amount of Giant fans in our area, and frankly, I feel bad for them. So,
well, let's get right into that, my friend, because when you look at this Giants depth chart, and Jimmy, if you can bring up the offense, please, of the Giants. Browns play them in week 3. Oh, boy, Josh, let's take a look at this. All right. First of all, at quarterback. The Tommy DeVito story, that was fun. Lots of Italian stuff and mob thing. That was cute. He's third on the depth chart for a reason. The 2 ahead of him, though, aren't much better. Daniel Jones, who just, come on, man. And then Drew Lock is another, come on, man. Right? That's it. How do you feel about the quarterbacks?
The problem with the Giants is that they still have the quarterback that the previous GM, remember, fell in love with. Remember it was David Gettleman. He said, when I saw Daniel Jones, I fell in love. Yeah. So they still have somebody else's love interest. So it's what? How are you supposed to handle that, right? So it's to me, there's a lot of speculation. Is Drew Lock there to compete? Brian Dable says he's not there to compete. I don't know. It's one of those deals where they paid Daniel Jones a lot of money, and it's a big reason why they are in the predicament they are in. You know how it is, Andy, as a as a Browns fan. Giants in particular as Browns fans, you invest in the wrong quarterback, it puts you behind.
That's it. And you have to keep swinging. But they didn't swing this offseason at a quarterback. They went with a wide receiver, which is another area where just overall, like Josh, the last couple of years, like Daniel Jones is not good, but you almost have to think, can you blame him? There was no talent, no upper echelon talent, no other wide receiver or tight end on that team the last couple of years. You could take out, pluck, and put on another team and say that's a number one wide receiver. There, at least you got Malik Neighbors in the draft. I like the player. Boy, I don't know about his situation though.
So here's the nugget I got for you on that. So I was listening to Jordan Ronan, who covers the Giants for ESPN.com last night. He was on ESPN radio. It just happened to be in my car at the same time, right? Station right there, but he was saying that apparently Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel are being shopped before the draft. And he said that teams were asking, the 49ers were asking for a first-round pick. And he was saying, for the Giants, why would you give up 6 overall when you could just draft a wide receiver?
Yeah.
That's the big reason why Malik Neighbors is here, because the Giants valued long-term having a guy, right? Long-term having a wide receiver under contract, then being the team that goes out and says, well, we traded for Ayuk, or we traded for Samuel. So now you have a wide receiver who's going to be under control, right, for 5 years.
Yeah.
There's value in that. Now, you mentioned about the offensive weapons. The New York Giants were last in the NFL in yards per play last year. Last. So I don't exactly know how they're going to get better, even though they added Neighbors, because of the fact that they did more to secure their defense this offseason than their offense, which makes no sense. Like, Andy, let me ask you a question. Your car needs an oil change, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to go to the mechanic and say, "Hey, man, can you give me new tires?" Well, I guess you need new tires, but you need an oil change. Yeah, man, but I want new tires.
I want those fancy rims. Yeah.
That's what the Giants are doing. The Giants feel like the team that's like, they have a specific need and they don't take care of it.
No.
It's ridiculous.
You know what? We'll hop back to the offense. You bring up the defense. Bring up the defense quick here, Jimmy. And that's an area when you look at that linebacker core, like you look at that, it's like, hey, that's pretty good. Like, look at those linebackers right there, right? And that's okay. The secondary, defensive line, all right. But the linebackers look pretty decent. So you're right. You have that. Like, is the game plan like to try to grind out like 13-10 wins or something? Like, it's just I don't know what the game plan is. I'm predicting to the future. I just picture Brian Daboll looking for a coordinator job next year, and I'm not even blaming Daboll really. I think he is a decent head coach. It could be a good one in the future, but the cards are stacked against this guy.
So here's my take. First of all, on the defense, Brian Burns, they acquired him, right? They're still developing Kevon Thibodeau. They got Dexter Lawrence. They got a really good defensive line.
Yeah.
And they got a really good pass rush this year. But no Wink Martindale. Martindale, remember, quote unquote, retired from the NFL. He's now the defensive coordinator at the University of Michigan, is Wink Martindale. So now you're bringing in Shane Bowen. And if the people can see the depth chart that you guys put on the screen, focus in on how they list Thibodeau and Burns. Those are LBs next to their name, right?
Yeah.
Not defensive ends. So now you are taking two players who have been at times hand in the dirt, and now you're asking them to stand up. That's going to be fascinating to watch. Do those guys, I mean, does it make them more impactful? Does it make them less impactful? Look what happened to the Philadelphia Eagles last year. The reason why I signed Reddick isn't here anymore is because Reddick did not want to be a stand-up pass rusher anymore. They kept dropping him into coverage when they should have been blitzing him. Now, of course, they had a bad coordinator. They changed coordinator twice for the Eagles. But the point is Shane Bowen going to make the same mistake with the New York Giants? Is he going to ask Thibodeau and Burns to be these, like, drop in the coverage, cut across the line, do this, do that? Or is he going to use them as pass rushers? If you use them as pass rushers, it could be a very good 3-4 scheme. If not, well, again, Andy, you're a Browns fan. You know what happens when teams don't use pass rushers properly.
Yeah, I've seen this story, yeah, as a Browns fan. That's what always drives me nuts, Josh. When you have coordinators come in or head coaches, and it's like, this is my system, and you're going to do, but that guy's really good at doing this. Well, that's not my system. Well, okay, but then that's not going to go well, and you're probably going to piss them off, and they're not going to be as useful, and then you get more. Now, like you said, maybe the whole situation, they pass rush it. Maybe Brian Burns likes dropping back into coverage, and we don't know it. I have my doubts, but those are the situations right there where you take the names and it's like, hey, if you're the Giants, hey, we got this talent. How can we mess this up? It just seems for a bedrock franchise that for so long was one of the standard bearers of consistency, of build through the lines of scrimmage. Boy, they've lost their way over the past since Eli, I guess.
What's weird about the Giants is that, remember, a lot of the teams that won the championships, they were built by Ernie Accorsi. Mm-hmm. They were built by a completely different regime.
Yeah.
So you're talking about what, 4 GMs ago at this point? Like,
sure.
So it's like you brought in who you brought in, Joe Shane, Brian Dable, to change the culture, and they did. We got to give them credit. They got the Super Bowl, the postseason, the first year. Mm-hmm. But they invested in the wrong quarterback. So now it feels like they're overcompensating defensively because they realize that, as you said, Andy, if they can grind out games, they can maybe do something. The problem is, why'd you bring in Drew Lock?
Yeah.
Why do you, again, Cleveland Browns history is full of, if you have too many quarterbacks, you have no quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So why on earth did you bring in Drew Lock and then be like, oh no, they're not competing? No, it's Daniel Jones. It feels like, again, you mentioned earlier, is Brian Dable looking for a coordinator job next year? I don't think so for this one reason. They're going to get rid of Daniel Jones after this year. They're going to go into the draft, get another quarterback, and that resets the clock on the GM and on the head coach. And I think that's the Giants are trying to stay above water this year and basically tell their fans, look at all the great things we did building the rest of the roster. Now watch us build with the quarterback. So
now we just need the quarterback.
Right.
In conversation with Josh Hennig from 97.3 ESPN Radio. And Josh, here's the problem, though. If you don't bottom out as the Giants, then you're not going to get, as we know, one of the best quarterbacks. And who knows what that – we talk every year after next year's the best draft class. Well, word is it's supposed to not be as good as this year, and this year has its question marks. But who knows? Somebody always pops up, whatever. That's for a problem down the road. But if you don't bottom out and you get more than 4 wins, you're not getting whoever that guy or second guy is. And so then are you reaching and making another Daniel Jones-like mistake? Are you having to trade all this capital and trade up to the 1 spot and mortgage your future? This is just, I just don't see the game plan here for them.
Yeah, and it feels like they think they have something salvageable in Daniel Jones. They're the only ones who think so, but they think so.
Right. Okay. It's like, all right, they're in the bit. He hasn't been salvaged yet. Now, if you look, does Daniel Jones have his skill set? Has he had his moments? Absolutely.
He's also fallen down at the 10-yard line, running to the end zone, tripped on the grass monster. So
that is correct.
I mean, and Andy, it's one of those deals where you do a lot of fantasy football talk here on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
And if you're a fantasy football owner and you're getting into that 11, 12, 13, 14th round, and the Giants people are still there, it's not like you're sitting there being like, oh man, Devin Singletary, he's a steal. Malik Neighbors, he's a steal. Daniel Jones, he could be a 1-week fill-in if I need him to. Darren Waller just retired. That dude is so twisted over his divorce that he released the worst song of all time and retired.
Yes. Yeah, and you're
that guy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So, I mean, you lose a potential 1,000-yard receiver, right?
Yeah.
You bring in Neighbors. You have Devin Singletary, who was fine for the Texans last year. So, like, if you're playing fantasy football, you're watching on NFL Red Zone this year. You're not looking at the Giants and being like, oh, man, I've got to watch this Giants team. But the problem is when your Browns play the Giants this year, the question is that Giants defense going to be firing all cylinders? Is this going to be a 10-7 game going into the fourth quarter kind of game?
Right. Yeah, Jimmy, bring up the offense again if you could, so we can take a look at that. Well, and that's what I kind of wanted to go with this next is when we look at the fantasy football side, and we look at the Browns head-to-head with the Giants, the matching up, I think, really comes back to your point on what the defense looks like. Now, if you're sending Thibodeau and Burns, go get them, boys. Different story. That could be a whole different dynamic if you can collapse that front of the pocket and try to get Deshaun Watson down scrambling and improvising in a bad way. That's not going to be a good day. And the Browns are going to be almost exclusively out of shotgun this year. You don't have Nick Chubb. You do have a committee. And so that could be problematic. But if we see, and it's, you're dropping guys back and it's inconsistent, then, it might not, you have these names and the possibilities, but you're not utilizing them.
So I think if we are to find a silver lining in all this, this is now the third straight offseason the Giants have invested in their offensive line.
Right.
They brought in John Runyon. He's a good offensive lineman. And I'm saying if you believe Andrew Thomas and Neal are going to develop, right? If you believe they could be solid tackles, can the Giants turn into a little bit of what the Vikings did last year with their backup quarterbacks, where you say, I got this high-level receiver, right? If people believe Neighbors might have been the best receiver in the draft, right?
Arguably, yeah.
There were those people who believe that. So I'm not saying Neighbors is Justin Jefferson. No one's not that crazy, right? No. But the Browns last year won games with Joe Flacco in defense.
Yeah.
Right? So you look at the Vikings, you look at the Browns. Do the Giants try to say, if our offensive line holds up, Andy, we could get the ball to Neighbors. We could feed him. Singletary is out there. Hyatt, I mean, their tight ends are trash for the Giants. So I'm not even going to.
Daniel Bellinger, but like below average is speaking nicely. The fantasy output is nothing outside of Neighbors. Really.
You know what's crazy? On that depth chart, you showed Jack Stahl, former Eagles tight end, as the third tight end. Like, he was the backup last year. That dude got paid more to leave Philadelphia, go to the Giants, and he's not even listed as a starter right now. Like, that's how ridiculous that is.
Wow. Yeah. And that running back, like you said, Singletary is fine as part of a committee. You saw the names, Eric Gray. Okay. Are you going to go fantasy-wise? It's poison. I want nothing to do. I really want nothing to do with the Giants for starters of anybody. And that's sucks for Malik Neighbors because I like Malik Neighbors, but I'm not going to draft him as my top wide receiver. I'm actually more apt, the more I think about it, with how Drew Lock can move and in spot starts actually look kind of good the last couple times he's been in. I'm more apt, like I'm looking for a backup or like in one QB leagues. I always like to draft two as a safety net. And if I have maybe even spot for a third and I've got all my other positions done, I wouldn't mind just parking Drew Lock and just wait. Because I kind of think fantasy-wise, if he comes in and you got to use for a couple games, I kind of feel better with Drew Lock than Daniel Jones right now, which is crazy to say. But that's kind of where we're at. You have two quarterbacks who are going to go down as first-round busts.
Deep ball play action game. Deep ball play action. Drew Lock could be that guy where you fake the handoff to Singletary, you drop back, you see Neighbors blitzing down the sideline, you throw it deep. Lock is a very good deep ball. It was what got him drafted in the first place. It's what he showed a little bit in Denver, a little bit in Seattle. So to me, I think that's where his value is the yards after the catch kind of stuff, right? The yak yards, the idea that he can get at the playmakers. But the problem is Daniel Jones is the better athlete. So, they might want to run a different offense with Jones compared to Neighbors.
Yes.
Sorry, Jones compared to Locke with Neighbors.
And can Jones stay healthy? And all, it's just
right.
When we look at the Giants in the NFC North, we know it's the Eagles and the Cowboys kind of in a 1-2 pick, pick who you like. I think the Eagles first, but you can make certain arguments. Are the Giants with the Commanders and they have their new quarterback? Like, is it just a battle for the basement there? Like, does one team excite you more than the other?
Oh yeah. No, it doesn't, because the Giants have the defense. If you put the Giants defense with Washington's offense, you have a playoff team.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Jalen Daniels, I think Daniel's going to be good down there in Washington. I think Cliff Kingsbury is going to, listen, you want those betting odds? What are the betting odds for Rookie of the Year? You might want to throw it on Daniels, because not Caleb Williams, Daniels, because you're going to get fat value out of it. He's got Cliff Kingsbury. He's got Terry McLaurin. He's got some pieces down there, right? But the problem with Washington is, Andy, their defense stinks.
They traded them all. They had a good defensive line. They had 5 first-round picks on that defensive line. They traded them all.
I know.
Stupid.
It's like I feel bad for the Washington GM. I don't know if you guys saw the video, but the Eagles general manager Howie Roseman kept calling him like it was draft day, trying to convince him this is a good deal. This is a good deal. And literally after one of they put the video in like the war rooms during the draft.
Yeah.
And they literally called Howie a bleep because because I don't know if I can curse on this broadcast, but like
he's trying to fleece him.
Well, he's trying to fleece him, and Adam Gase is like, dude, he's like, why does this guy keep calling me?
It's like in draft day, you got the dumb Jaguars GM, that Sonny Weaver.
Right. Well, that's Howie Roseman. Howie's trying to be Kevin Costner, and the Washington GM wouldn't go for it.
Someone's going to be a donkey. Don't make it be.
So it's like, so Washington, like their GM is already like, dude, I walked into a mess. Like, I'm not going to mess this up any worse than I've already got it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You know what? I like that Jane Daniels Rookie of the Year. I'm going to pop some bucks on that. It's a good, I like your thinking there. But you're right. You kind of combine both these teams. And then when we look at the Browns in comparison to this team and their tough schedule down the road, this is really a must win. This is a game you got to win. And the big X factor here, Josh, of course, is you have the defense is built. Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year. Jim Schwartz, Assistant Coach of the Year. The special teams is set. The offense all around is set. What about the quarterback? Because I'll tell you this right now. If Deshaun Watson plays like he did in Houston, the Browns are going to the AFC Championship game at a minimum. At a minimum. Everything else is there.
Right.
But that is the question that we don't know the answer to, and we're going on faith because glenoid bone recovery, can he stay healthy? Can he get back? How much rust? Yada, yada, yada. That's the big question there for the Browns. It's Deshaun Watson. I think it begins and ends there.
I'm also curious about the offensive coordinator situation because, Ken Dorsey was kicked out of Buffalo because him and Josh Allen couldn't connect. Does he connect with Deshaun Watson? Does he refine what Watson was in Houston in a way that I know Stefanski's offense in Cleveland, but like, I'm curious, like, what's the purpose of bringing in Dorsey if it's Stefanski's offense, if you're not trying to ignite something, right? If you're not trying to, Dorsey's a former quarterback, Watson the quarterback, that whole dynamic. Because, listen, when they got rid of Dorsey in Buffalo, they got better. The offense got way better.
Running the ball more, yep.
But I don't know, does Dorsey, like, Dorsey's an intense dude, right? He's a super intense, competitive, mother bleep you to death, scream and yell. If anyone's ever watched, you ever see the show Welcome to Wrexham?
No, it's got my favorite, my Sunny in Philadelphia guys in it, but I haven't watched it, no.
So they have this joke on the show that every time the manager, Phil Parkinson, curses, they call it enthusiasm, and they have an enthusiasm meter. So every time he drops an F-bomb or something, they sit there and they count it like 1, 2. It's called Phil's enthusiasm. Like Ken Dorsey's enthusiasm, we'll call it. It's pretty high up there. His enthusiasm meter goes pretty high. But is that something that could connect better with Watson compared to Josh Allen, Wyoming, right? Whereas Deshaun Watson,
good old boy,
very competitive, Clemson, Bill O'Brien wasn't a softie down there in Houston, right? Maybe Dorsey and his cussing left and right and his breaking glass and breaking clipboards and smashing headsets. Maybe Deshaun Watson can respond to that better than Josh Allen.
Well, the thing is, too, Dorsey gets on great with Cam Newton, coached up Cam Newton. Newton
sure.
and Deshaun Watson are boys. Newton vouched for Dorsey on his podcast to Deshaun Watson. And so you have that. Dorsey also was a third-string quarterback for a time in Cleveland. Whether that means anything or not, so is many people.
I was going to say one of like 20.
Doug Peterson was also. He started a game for the Browns. Yeah, how about that?
Doug Peterson, Jeff Garcia, Wynn.
Don't go through the list, please. Please, I can't take the list. I can't take the jersey list. No. But you have this, Josh, this is what happened, I think. The Browns saw, okay, Kevin Stefanski, you're a 2-time coach of the year. You got 2 playoff appearances. You got 1 win. That 1 playoff win came with Baker Mayfield. You were brought in, and your offense was tailored to Baker Mayfield type, right? That's what it was. Play action, roll out, connect, and it worked well. Well, the owner got antsy, sold his soul to whoever you want to say he sold it to, and got Deshaun Watson and all that came with him. Well, now this is the Hail Mary entering year 3. Okay, we're going to do everything, and we're going to eliminate any excuse. You want shotgun, Deshaun? You got it. You want to improvise? Yes. You want a coordinator that knows and runs this type of offense, not Stefanski having to think about it? You got him with Ken Dorsey. That's why Dorsey, they'll announce at some point, he's going to call plays. It's nuts if he doesn't call plays. Why have him? You brought him in to do this.
If I could ask you a question. I know it's your show, but I have a question for you, the host, okay? How many weeks are you going to be patient with Watson and Dorsey?
Boy. Yeah, here's my patience level personally is 0 because I saw Joe Flacco get his ass off the couch after 11 months of doing nothing. It took me to the playoffs.
You know what Joe Flacco was doing? Joe Flacco was hanging out 15 minutes where I'm sitting right now, having slushies with his kids down in Center Harbor. That's what he was doing.
And and now he's in Indianapolis, might get to play. They didn't want to bring back Flacco. This wasn't the official line, but let's be obvious because the fan base would be chanting for Flacco because he went hero mode. So you bring in Jameis Winston, okay? So really, if you had Flacco sitting there, fans' patience level would be cut to like 1 game. Now you got Jameis Winston, who lots of energy, love him on social, think he'll make a great podcast host one day. But I also remember he was the guy that threw 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. So
he's also the guy, remember, who said we're gonna eat this W, and he made the W with his fingers and put it in his mouth.
Gonna eat the dubs. The guy's got charisma coming out of the wazoo. But do I want him coming and taking over, coming in due to performance? No. So I guess, here's the thing. You got to win games by any means necessary, especially this first 4 of the season because of how the schedule plays out later. So as long as they win, I think me and the fans can be patient if Deshaun isn't throwing for 300 yards. If they're losing and he's not playing well, now we got a problem and you don't have a good answer. And that's the real issue. That's where this thing could go south.
Jameis Winston, future better podcaster or future better WWE manager?
Oh boy. I'd have Jameis Winston cutting promos today.
Right?
I think that guy's, my gosh. He's got, even on the Brown stuff, you're just like, man, this guy's awesome. And then he's great talking, but man, I don't really want him throwing the football that much. Personally. Then after that, you got Tyler Huntley, who runs around, can't throw the ball. And then you got Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who has a hip injury. He's recovering from a hip injury. So if Deshaun Watson doesn't work, Josh, is what I'm saying. If it doesn't work, the season's done. You have no expectations. You miss all your expectations. And, by the way, you still got more time on the Watson contract. So he's not going anywhere. Then what the hell do you do? So it really comes down to the Browns put themselves in a position with Ken Dorsey and revamping the offense of, there's no other choice but to succeed. And damn it, I hope they do it for my sake, for everyone's sake.
So you just named a bunch of quarterbacks there. I got to say, Stefanski's starting to sound like John Gruden in Tampa, where he's just like collecting quarterbacks. It's like, oh, you were something at some point. Oh yeah. Jameis Winston, you were a first overall pick. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, you hold a bunch of UCLA records. Huntley, you won a couple games in the NFL. Like, sure, why don't you all come down? You're the next contestant on the Browns backup quarterback Price is Right.
Come on in and stick around. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. One thing, though, I think even if Deshaun Watson is still shaking off whatever rust or whatever you want to call it or offense, by the time they play the Giants, I still think the Browns have the pieces to be able to win this game.
Yeah. So. The Giants, like I said, their defense is going to be there. It's a question of by the time the Giants play the Browns, have they figured it out too?
Have they got their formula? Yeah.
Right. Because again, as I said, last year, last in the NFL, yards per play. It didn't exactly get better. Lost Saquon Barkley. So it's like,
yeah.
What are the Giants going to do offensively that'll be better than last year? I have no idea. Unless Malik Neighbors is immediately going to be what everyone thinks he can be.
Right. And do you have the quarterback that can make him rise to that potential?
Right.
Lots of questions there. Josh, where can people find you, buddy? You are non-stop working, man. Where can people find you?
Yeah, 97.3 ESPN Radio, South Jersey. I am the producer for the afternoon show, the Sports Special Mike Gill, except for today. I'm taking a personal day, taking care of some stuff, family stuff, and then my show coming on with you, taking a time out from my activities around the house. 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, I'm usually on 97.3 ESPN at Josh Hennig on Twitter X. If you want to watch my show, it's on YouTube like yours is. Just search my name at Josh Hennig. And if I'm forgetting something, a bad job by me.
Yeah, I think you got everything. Hey, and if you're in the Jersey area, you're out at local bars and all that, go hang out. Hit up Josh. Go hang out. Have some brews, have some food, wherever you are, right?
Listen, I like meeting the people. So, sometimes people are better than others, so
yes.
It's like the brews. The brews are better than other certain places, right?
Yeah, always interesting on live remotes. That's for sure.
Oh yes, I mean literally this past Saturday we did a remote down at the Make the World Better Foundation, and we had former Eagle Connor Barwin on, a couple other Eagles on. They were raising money. I mean, those people are like building parks and rec centers for kids.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool. And you go down there, you just see random people. It's like poor Jake Elliott, the kicker. No one's talking to him, and I'm like, I ran over when I come on the show. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Got nothing to do. Listen, kickers, you don't think you need them till you need them, right? So that's what it is. And we hope Dustin Hopkins can keep going for the Browns this year. All right, buddy. Very good. Thank you so much. And I will, I'm sure, talk to you on your show soon enough as well. So we'll do it again.
Absolutely. 100%.
All right. There he goes. Thanks, buddy. Josh Hennig from 97.3 ESPN talking Giants. And when it's the Eagles' turn on the Browns schedule, then we will jump in and bring Josh back on. Always love talking with Josh. So there you go, folks. I want to know from you what you think the result is going to be from the Browns versus the Giants week 3. Where's your highest level of concern and confidence on this Browns team? Hit us up in the comments. Click like, click notifications on, subscribe. Free to subscribe. Just click subscribe. Get us on social, on Twitter, X, at AndyMC81, at SickPodBrowns, Instagram and TikTok, at AndyMCSports. And next week, we will be heading to Las Vegas virtually to talk about the Raiders versus the Browns in week 4. That'll really kind of cap off that first chunk of the season. So thank you so much to my guest, Josh Hennig from 97.3 ESPN, producer Jimmy, and to all of you. You've been watching the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara. And as always, go Browns!
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.